All right. Let me just start by introducing myself. I'm Matt, one of the developer advocates here at Viam, and today I'm going to essentially walk through a project I created with Viam. It's a project that I built with really practical intentions. I had an idea of how, um, I had some problems to solve, and I realized that I'm lucky enough to work at a company like VM where we're building a product that can actually help me solve these problems. Um, so let me share my screen to start a presentation, and I'll walk you all through. Um, at any point, if you have any questions, feel free to just message, and Hazal will be watching, and Hazal, feel free to interrupt me if it makes sense. If there are questions that can wait until the end, that's great as well. But either way is fine. Okay, let me share my screen. All right, and just verifying everybody can see my screen at this point. Does all look good?
Yeah, it looks good.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, I'm calling this modular capabilities for a smarter camera. Kind of an obtuse title, but I will explain what I mean. But first, what did I want to solve? Why am I talking about this project in general? Um, so I live in a very rural location. I actually do have backyard ducks. They lay eggs. If you've never had duck eggs, they're taste a lot like chicken eggs, but they are a bit bigger. And I've had problems in the past. Again, I live in a rural area. There are bears, there are foxes, there are coyotes. There's all kind of wildlife that can and have attacked my ducks. And so being able to know and be alerted if there is a predator nearby would be very important. I could also maybe automate some action like an alarm if there are predators nearby. Um, I also have a dog named Luna, and we jokingly refer to her as a Southern girl because she actually did come from Tennessee, where it's much warmer than this Massachusetts climate that I live in. And so, if we ever let her out in the yard and we leave her out there for 5 minutes, she's freezing and not happy with us. And so, unfortunately, it happens once in a while. So I wanted a way to actually know when by mistake I've left her out in the yard for too long. And finally, we do have this big cat named Boo, who is the neighbor's cat. Boo, he is an outdoor cat. We also have a cat that is an indoor cat. And so the sad thing for my cat is that Boo is outside having fun and, I don't know, attacking mice or whatever cats do outside. Well, our cat is stuck inside. But Boo will actually come and stand at the window and kind of taunt my cat Onyx, just teasing him like, don't you wish you could be out here with me? And so maybe something that could actually like let me know when Boo is doing this and scare him away. And I have, like a standard security camera. I got this off of Amazon for, I think, around $40. And if you have any experience with security cameras, whether they be, a no-name camera like this or something like Ring, they have some limited capabilities. They might be able to tell you when a person is at your door, but they can't tell you if there's a predator, like of certain types of animals. I don't think they do dog detection or cat detection. And so, if I think about building a smart camera, these are the things that I want to do. If you were thinking about building a smart camera, chances are you would probably have very different ideas of what you would want to do. I doubt you, are in the same situation as me. So, for example, maybe you have maybe you own an apartment building with a pool, or maybe you're lucky enough to have a backyard pool, and you want to know if your young children are going there unattended. What if you own a business where you rely on a daily UPS delivery, and so you want to be notified when the UPS person shows up, but not the postal person? All these things can actually be done today pretty easily without too much trouble by building a smarter camera. So how do you do this? First of all, what I use for this project. As I said, cheap, inexpensive security camera. This is a real-time streaming protocol camera, and basically that just means that it can stream images over an IP address, and it's really easy to set up. You just get it on your network. It exposes itself on an IP address, and then Viam allows you to point to that IP address to grab images and do interesting things. In this case, I built this and initially was using it with a MacBook, but I can also use it with a Raspberry Pi or any other small single board computer that Viam runs on. And in real life, like that is what you'd probably want to run a smart camera on, so you can leave it off to the side, always on, as opposed to your MacBook. You might be taking someplace and, it wouldn't stay on when you have the MacBook potentially closed or in your backpack or whatever. But with Viam, it really doesn't matter. Like, the code is exactly the same, deployment is exactly the same, whether you're using a MacBook, Raspberry Pi, Orange Pi, NVIDIA Jetson, etc. And then finally, Viam Server, and we'll talk about that more. So like any other Viam project, the way you get started is by going to app.viam.com and you create a new machine. You can name your machine whatever you would like, but this is the start of every Viam project. There is then a very simple two-step process where essentially you download Viam Server to the place where it will be running, in this case, my Mac laptop, and then also you get a configuration file, and then you're off and running. Next step in this case is you add a camera component. They're all different models, so if you're using simple webcam attached to your laptop, you would choose that. In this case, again, I use a real-time streaming protocol camera. But there are lots of different options here. And then you get started adding some machine learning models and vision services. So I'm going to talk while I play this silly video for you. This is actually a video of me looking on Hugging Face. If you're not familiar with Hugging Face, it is a site that has lots of different machine learning models, AI models, all sorts of really interesting projects that others have created. And there is a way to actually directly use models from Hugging Face, which I'm showing here. So I basically configured this hard hat detection module, and you can see it's detecting I have no hard hat. But strangely enough, I own a hard hat. Don't ask why. I put it on, and all of a sudden it is detecting that I have a hard hat on. And so just an example of how you can leverage machine learning models with Viam, whether they are models that you create with Viam, and there is a way to essentially capture data, train models right from app.viam.com, which is an awesome feature. But, if there's a model out there in the world, whether it be Hugging Face, RoboFlow is another place I look for models, or other, TensorFlow Lite or TensorFlow models that you want to upload, it's really just a matter of configuring them in Viam and then starting to use them. Let's see, go to the next slide. Oops, okay. All right, so I showed you really quickly, high level, essentially how you could leverage a machine learning model already to create a smarter camera, to give you intelligence based on what your camera is seeing. But for this project, I decided to go even further. And so essentially, I created a module, and if you want to try playing with this, it's out there in the Viam registry, where I'm calling it an event manager. I'm calling it SavCam, which stands for Smart AI Viam Camera. I had to come up with something kind of clever, of course. And the event manager essentially is a process that once you've configured it, is sitting there looking for events to occur. And how do you specify what events you're looking for? Well, at first I figured, okay, Viam allows you to have attributes that can be attached to any component or service that you're configuring. So in this case, I essentially like built this structure that you can use with this module that allows you to, well, set up some rules. In this case, I'm using a detector, which is a machine learning detector. Specifically, it's called Coco detector. If I'm 70% confident that I see a dog with this camera, which is also configured in my VM instance called backdoor camera, then that would actually, in this case, trigger a SMS notification to my phone. And so, yeah, this event manager module, really all it's doing is like running in a continuous loop, checking for any rules. If you change your configuration, it's going to reload with new rules. And then if any of those rules are triggered, it is going to do a notification. And today, a few different notifications are supported: email, SMS, and also I think I added push notifications. And so I was actually like playing around with IFTTT. If you're not familiar, that's like this website where you can set up all different automations, and they do accept webhooks. And so you can have the event manager actually kick off a webhook to maybe turn on a light through IFTT or any other sort of automation that they support. Again, this is open source. This is kind of like the heart of my smart camera. If you like the functionality, feel to use it. If you want to extend the functionality, definitely send me a pull request. But this is kind of a nice example of using VM to have kind of like complex workflows that can be deployed to your machine. And I built it in a generic way that really anybody could use it as long as they're willing to like deal with this JSON structure, which is documented in the README. And okay, what if I wanted to actually use the event manager programmatically? Like, what if I wanted to create some sort of interface to actually understand, like, what was triggered recently, or for a given camera, what was triggered, or even a specific rule that I've configured. So I, built this as a generic VM module. If you're not familiar, generic modules are essentially base class modules that have a single method exposed called do command. And the idea with do command is you can actually in your module build any sort of logic that looks for a given key and then applies the logic that you have built in your module for that key. So in this case, I have a method based on this key get triggered that essentially looks for any events that have occurred in the past and then returns them in a JSON structure. And I'm not going to go deep into that, but it's all documented again in the README for the module. But why did I create this interface? Well, because I actually wanted to build a custom interface. Viam does have a Flutter SDK. They also have a TypeScript SDK. So if you wanted to build a web app, you could. In this case, I built a mobile app using the Flutter SDK. And part of the motivation was I thought it was really tedious to, configure these rules for my smart camera using JSON. Like, it's a big kind of ugly JSON structure. And so what's kind of interesting about this app is that it's actually using an API, not only to talk to the machine that is running the camera, but also to the VM cloud to see what configuration exists for the event manager module. And so it pulls the configuration, it allows you to edit rules, it allows you to add new rules. I'll actually try a live demo of that in just a few minutes. But I thought this was actually like, I think a really interesting way to use different parts of VM, because also from this app, it allows you to see a live view of any cameras, but then it also allows you to use that API that I just showed you to pull information and even a replay of any events that did occur. So again, interacting both with the machine that's running the event manager, but also with the VM app to see what the configuration is for the event manager. All right, and so I'll try to show you a live demo in just a minute and answer any questions, but before that, because live demos don't always go smoothly, I have a recorded demo. And so the idea here is, oh, it's actually showing you the end of the demo. But here is a view of the app. You can see there's this live stream from the camera. At the moment, there are no triggered events, but you'll see my dog Luna is actually like walking up to the door, and it should see that she is there. It did, and so all of a sudden it popped up the alert, and it allows me to replay the alert. So that is my quick recorded demo, and I will now try to show you a live demo. But first, before I go there, any questions? Because I know I covered kind of a lot of ground really quickly, and so I'm sure some things might not have been super clear. I'm happy to take some questions before I go to the live demo.
Currently we don't have any questions, but we have a comment that says, I really like this approach.
Cool, cool. Yeah, and again, like if you're thinking about your projects for the challenge, this module is a great reference. You know, you're probably not going to do the same project, of course, but you know, to see like how it is done, I think could be useful. And so definitely like check it out. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Discord, and I'm happy to really answer any of those questions. So, okay, cool. Let me see. Zal, tell me if this works. I'm going to actually stop sharing the slides. Do you see this screen at this point?
I see the screen, but it's not loading.
It's not loading. Okay. Let me try this instead. I'm going to switch what I'm sharing. Okay. Let me flip on my camera. All right. Let me share a different screen. Okay. Can you see this?
Yes, now we see the VM example app with SafCam.
Okay, cool. All right. So if you see kind of at the top there under cameras, I have it hooked up to this real-time streaming protocol camera. Let's see. Of course, this demo is not working. Let me, okay, I think I need to restart the app because it's been kind of, I think it got disconnected during the rest of the talk there. Give me 1 second.
As you do that, we have one question. Maybe it will help you structure rest of the presentation.
Sure.
Ritish is asking, can you go a bit more over how to add custom ML models?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. Give me 1 second. Okay, let me try this live demo first, and then yes, I will go over custom ML models. Let me share that app again, the running app. Okay. All right, so you can probably see like there's this little window pointing the camera at myself. Again, this is actually one of those real-time streaming protocol cameras. And so what am I actually showing you here is that I have this custom app that again is using the Flutter SDK. And really all it's doing here is connecting to my computer.
Currently it's loading for me, so I don't see your screen. I see two rectangles just moving around.
Oh, really? You don't see anything? Okay. Wait, you can't see. What exactly do you see, Hazel?
Oh, Nick said they can see it. Then it's great. I'll just take a screenshot.
Okay.
See.
Cool.
Then
so,
feel free to.
Okay. So yeah, again, really, all I'm doing here is any of the VM SDKs allow you to interact with your components and services that are configured for your machine. And so it really doesn't matter if it's Flutter or Python or C++, there are methods in the VM SDK to interact with all of them. And all the methods are the same from language to language. They may be, you know, formatted differently to fit with the conventions for that language. For example, you know, in Python, get image is get underscore image, whereas in Go, it's capital G, get, and then, you know, camel case image without an underscore, because those are essentially the conventions used in those languages. In Flutter, in this app, yeah, really all I'm doing is, in this case, connecting to that camera and pulling images so that I can show you what's happening, you know, live with this camera. I can also click here. If I have multiple cameras, by the way, this app is set up so it would actually, you know, show you live previews from all of the cameras that you have configured. And by the way, this app is also open source. And so you can see how I'm doing exactly all these things. If I click here, essentially this is just another screen that's giving me a bigger preview of the side view of my head from this IP camera. As I mentioned before, there's this concept of alerts, and this is all brokered by the event manager. So this camera thing actually has nothing to do with the event manager. It's going straight to the configured cameras. But if I click here, I will actually see, like, here are my configured alerts. So this actually corresponds to, like, my needs. So wild animal, for example, is using essentially like this detector, which is called animal detector. Um, it could be active either home, away. There's a concept of modes. In this case, I could make it both modes, home and away. And this idea of debounce is that, you know, if a wild animal is in view, I don't want it sending me alert or whatever notifications I have configured constantly. I want them like spaced at least 60 seconds apart. And so you can configure that as you like. And there's also this idea of rule logic, meaning I could set up multiple rules. Maybe, for example, I want this only to be active at night. So I could, like, you know, have the start hour be, you know, like this, and then end, you know, at say 7 in the morning. And oh, I don't think I saved the rule, but the idea is you can actually have logic like either I see an animal or it's between the middle of the night, which wouldn't make sense. But you could have rules like maybe I see an animal or a person, or I need to see an animal and a person at the same time. So it's kind of flexible in terms of how you configure it. And really, again, all the screen is doing is changing that JSON structure, which corresponds to the attributes in the event module configuration. And so this is just a demo of how you can actually use APIs to even programmatically change the configuration of any of your components and services. You might not need to, but it is possible by using the VM app APIs versus the VM machine APIs. I think an important note here is that you can also set up different permissions. So you might actually, for example, like have some user-facing application that can interact with the configured machine. Like maybe you do want somebody to be able to, you know, stream video or, you know, really interact with any components, like move a robotic arm. But you don't actually want them to be able to reconfigure the machine or change the way the machine is configured in any way. That's where VM permissions comes in, and you would actually create an API key that has just the operator permission. And if you tried to use this app using one of those keys, then you would not be able to load this configuration or change the configuration. So this is kind of like getting into more complex VM projects, but in some use cases, it's actually really helpful to have those permissions. All of these are like corresponding with these animal examples. Let's see if we can actually set up one that will detect when the camera actually sees a human like me. So let's call it.
Before the human, we have an animal related question, so I'm gonna read that one.
Yeah.
Sir Walter is wondering, are the animals identified uniquely tagged like dog 1 and dog 2 and cat 2?
Great question. So I have two different detectors set up here. One of them is called the Efficient Net detector using the COCO data set. And if you're not familiar, COCO is an open source data set that identifies, I think, around like 100 different classes, including a number of animals. And so that one does detect, pretty common animals like I think dog, cat, even some specific types of dogs. And that's what I'm using to detect my dog Luna, and also the neighbor's cat, Boo. I also have a wildlife detector model that I found on the internet, and it's actually linked to the blog post that I can share after. I think it's actually, I might have the blog post actually in this presentation. But anyhow, the wildlife detector is actually trained on, I think, like 100,000 different wildlife images from people and institutions' wildlife cameras that they have set up outside. And it's really good because it actually has both night and day view of wildlife. And so this is the one that I would be using to detect like the bears and the foxes. But it actually just detects animal or not animal. So it's not specific. And so the way I would deal with that situation if I wanted to, have it alert me on, foxes and bears, but not on my ducks, is I'd probably use two different detectors in conjunction. And in my code, I would say, okay, do I see an animal? Okay, using that same image, is it a duck? Using that second machine learning detector. And so I'm sure there are machine learning models out there that actually have been trained for lots of different animals. But in this case, I'm using just those two detectors. Again, one that has like basic animals, but differentiates between dogs and ducks and cats. And then the one that is more broad in terms of being able to identify like bears and foxes and other animals. Um, but the final thing I'll mention is, and I can show this in a second, is that Viam does allow you to train your own models. So if you look out there on the internet, you don't find a model that fits your needs, you can train it with Viam and then deploy it to your machines. Okay, let me try this demo. And so I'm going to call it mat detector. Let's say home and away. And let's see. The rule is going to be of type detection. I'm going to use that COCO detector that I was talking about because it does detect people. Let's see. I think the class name is person. I hope that's right. Let's say if it's 50% sure that's a person, then that will be good enough. And using that IP camera. Okay. And then for notifications, I don't know. Let's see. Let's say it can email me. Okay, so now that rule is set up, and let me give the event manager maybe a few seconds to reconfigure. What should be happening is when the configuration goes to the VM cloud, the event manager is essentially like checking periodically to see if there's a new configuration. And if there is, it will reconfigure itself. So therefore, it will start checking on any new, in this case, configured rules or alerts. Okay, so let's assume that worked. Now I'm going to point the camera at my face, and in theory, it should trigger an alert. So here I am. Let's see. Don't know if it's working. Let me try looking in the logs to see if I can see what happened. It might be that I have the wrong class name configured. Let me go. Yeah, I can see detection dog. Okay. Yeah, the class name is DOG with a capital. So I think maybe I'm supposed to be using person with a capital P. Let me try that. In real life, like when you find these models, you will see that there's a label file that goes with them. If you're creating a model in Viam, you're choosing the labels yourself. And so, let's see. Now that I reconfigured it, it should be restarting again. See what happens. Okay, let's try this one more time. It's still not triggering. Okay. Of course, the demo never goes as smoothly as you practice. I might
Well, I'm glad
just,
you had a the outfit.
yeah, okay. I'm actually restarting the app one more time just to see if something
Can
about
I ask a
reconfiguring.
question in the meantime?
Yes, of course.
Psycut is wondering, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. All these events are configured in the JSON, right? And also, what kind of notifications do we want?
So yes, in this case, I invented essentially like what the configuration would look like for this module, which is kind of advanced use case. Like in many cases, you're using modules that other folks created and you're just following the readmes there. If you're using built-in things with VM, a lot of them actually have really nice configuration interfaces where, as opposed to writing JSON, you're actually like, choosing from drop-down menus or filling in form fields. But in some cases, yes, you will be working with JSON. In terms of what sort of notifications are available, they're the types of notifications that I actually built into this module directly. So this module actually has like the code in order to facilitate those types of notifications, including a really generic one, which again, like the webhook push out to really any place. I was using IFTTT, but you could have a webhook go out to any sort of like external site that is not VM to trigger other sorts of actions. And I'm not sure if did that answer the question?
They're typing, so yes, thanks.
Okay, cool. Let me share my screen one more time because I think I figured out what went wrong. Just to like cap that demo. One more time, I'm going to point the camera at me. See if it triggers anything. Okay, there we go. So we got an alert. And you can see like it popped up under here. You can see that it was the matte detector alert versus like the Luna alert or the Boo alert. You can see which camera. If I click in here, it will actually just like show the replay of the event. So it's just going to loop over and over and over again. Me holding my hand out and looking super photogenic. That's the end of the demo. Cool.
That was very cool. We have an additional question, which is an extension to the question, which was, can you go a bit more over how to add custom ML models, specifically if they want to use image bind model and run the code to match camera image and prompt embedding to check image of a USB delivery person, give a high similarity score when the text embedding match the image embeddings. They can do that easily in Collab Notebook, but if the camera is connected to Raspberry Pi will not be able to run that model. Can we run that code through VM server?
For the most part, yes. Like, not okay. I think it's kind of a nuanced question. So let me try to break down each part. So first, if you're not familiar, I'm going to share my screen again, show you something different. Okay, so, all right. So you can see like here I'm looking at a whole bunch of images that I captured from this machine. In fact, like probably way too many images, but the idea here is that Viam allows you to capture images from really anywhere. It can be a configured Viam machine. You can also upload images from other sources, like images you found on the web. And then you can actually like slice and dice those images. So you can, look for, um, you know, tagged images. Like in this case, I actually like tagged some images a while ago. Or you can go ahead and with your captured data, start labeling right here in Viam. So you could, create a label for, it's kind of just like my messy desk, but maybe you wanted to create a label for, I don't know, USB adapter, right? So you could create a label USB adapter, and then you can go ahead and tag this image by drawing a bounding box. Hold on. Oh, I forgot to click add a new label. Sorry about that. Now I can draw the bounding box. And so, oops, I drew it in the wrong place. But anyhow, the idea is you can kind of go through and label your data. And once you're ready, you can actually go and train your models. And so I'm not going to train one now, but you can click over to the training tab, and with all the images you selected, based on how they are tagged, you can choose, to create a model with, any number of images trained with any number of tags, and then you will create a custom model. Alternately, you can find any TF-Lite, TensorFlow, or PyTorch, or Onyx. So people can hold me to this, Nick or Hazal, if you remember, but I believe it's just this week support for support for TensorFlow, PyTorch, and Onyx has been rolled out, or if it's not rolled out, it should be any day. In the meantime, any TF-Lite model is supported. Beyond that, there is additional support from the registry. So if you're not familiar with the VM registry, these are essentially different contributed modules. Anybody can contribute to the registry. And so you'll see some specific trained models here, but then you'll also see modules that give you additional capabilities. So for example, I was showing you before that I was using a model from Hugging Face, and that is supported with a couple different modules that I built here called YOLO 5 and YOLO version 8. And so essentially, if you wanted to use any of the models that are YOLO V8 or YOLO V5 from Hugging Face, you could install this module, if it's a YOLO V8 module, and then this tells you how to do it. But essentially, in your configuration, you really just have to point to the unique identifier from Hugging Face. And so I can show you that real quick. Oops, that is not the right Hugging Face. I always do that. Okay, this is the right Hugging Face. And so if I look for YOLO models, here's one called YOLO V8 face detection, and files and versions. So in this case, they are actually, so what you could do here is you could actually download this and point to it with the module, or even better, you can actually just copy the string here, and this would be what you would paste into your configuration. So instead of this hard hat detection model, you could paste in that face detector model, and when you save it in your configuration with this YOLO V8 VM module configured, it's going to automatically download that model to your machine, and you can just start using it. If you're using Google Colab, I'm not that familiar with it. Does that actually host the models for you? If so, you might actually need to, if you wanted to use it like hosted by Google to point at it, you could look in the VM registry first to see if somebody's built any integration for that. Otherwise, you could actually build a custom vision service that can point to the Google service, and then you can integrate it very easily with all of your projects. I know there is, for example, a SageMaker module that does just that with AWS SageMaker. And so if there's not already an integration in the registry for Google Colab, and Google Colab works the way I'm thinking, and I could be wrong, you could do so. Does that help? And sorry, I'm not that familiar with Google Colab.
Nick said that Kaggle will host the models, and our community member Brian said, or you can publish on Hugging Face.
Okay, yeah. So if you publish on Hugging Face, then you could do exactly what I just showed you. I know also RoboFlow is another tool that a lot of folks use. RoboFlow also allows you to not only like find models that other people have trained, and you can use them with VM with a RoboFlow Vision module from the registry, but you can also train models in RoboFlow if for some reason you're trying to do something specific that's not supported with VM training. So VM is meant to be really an open platform. What I love about VM is that it's kind of like glue to a lot of other things. So it has a lot of great built-in features, but it also makes it very easy to integrate with other features. And a lot of times the integrations are already there on the right for you. But as part of the AI challenge, I would encourage a lot of you, if like there's a useful integration that you wanted to build, that's a great submission for the AI challenge. Because then essentially what you're doing is you're building a capability that can be used within the VM ecosystem. And not only could you use it, but really anybody could use it. So, you don't have to build a full end-to-end project like I just showed you with this event manager and camera. For the AI challenge, it really can just be a matter of adding a capability. And it doesn't have to be a capability you like created yourself. It could just be like, I think it would be really cool to allow people to, integrate, I don't know, name some technology out there with VM just through configuration. And so that's where building custom modules play in. And FYI, I am building a video of how to create a custom vision service, and hoping to get that done sometime next week. So look for that. It will be kind of a step-by-step walkthrough of exactly how to create a custom service that uses actually, in this case, AI from elsewhere.
That's awesome to hear. We have a few other questions. One of them is, if we are working on boards like Raspberry Pi, rather than downloading a large language model, can't we just pass the image and text to an API and get the results back?
100%, yes. And if you look on the VM registry, there's already a couple modules there that do just that. So one that I and Nick, who's on this call, have worked on quite a bit is called the speech module. The speech module is almost like a personal assistant module. It allows you to not only interact with, in this case, ChatGPT as an option, it also does speech to text, text to speech. And so it's kind of like middleware between like a lot of these technologies. But I know also on the registry, somebody created a ChatGPT module that literally just calls out to ChatGPT. And so depending on your use cases, there's a couple different options. Or if you wanted to integrate with some other AI API, yeah, there's a couple different ways to do it. You could do it directly in, your code, or you could actually create a reusable module so somebody can use it in the future.
I am adding links to these modules, both the speech one and ChatGPT one, if you want to take a look to our registry. Brian said AI can also be split, for example, run on GPU, laptop, or Jetson Orin or cloud while the sensors, cameras, etc. are on device. Yes, that's true. And Ritish said, your demo was great. It answers a lot of my questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Glad to hear that.
You're getting a lot of good feedback in the chat if you want to take a look at some point.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, one other thing I'll mention is you, all of you that are asking questions around like AI in the cloud. Absolutely, a lot of times that's the right option. Just call out to an API. Nick, also again on this call, one of my teammates, did some great work by creating a local LLM module that allows you to run models directly on your hardware. And both he and I have been like playing around with a lot smaller large language models that can actually run locally, even on a Raspberry Pi. And some of them actually are like even pretty fast on a Raspberry Pi. Quen, which came out recently from Alibaba, is one that comes to mind. Tiny Llama is another one that's a little bigger, but still, pretty fast and can run locally. There's like new models coming out all the time, and so, if you prefer to use something running locally on or your Raspberry Pi, there are options out there, and I love to talk about these things. So feel free to like ping me on Discord at any time. Cool. I guess last thing is, I forgot to, let me share my screen one more time because I actually have some resources.
Currently you were sharing your screen, but now you closed it. Cool.
Oh yeah.
If anybody has last questions, we can also go through them after you show your screen. Okay, we have one question. If I understood it correctly, we can train and host custom models in the Viam model registry. Is there any free tier for that?
Yes, the answer to that is yes, you can train in VM. Remind me, so I think we're actually like doing a session next week that is going to center more on machine learning models directly, including training in VM. So sorry for my lack of a demo there, but tune in. Otherwise, there's good documentation.
Yes. I'm also doing a video on how to add ML models into your robots, how to deploy it on smart machines. So we will have that next week. We also have a computer vision and ML model specific session if you want to join.
Awesome, cool. And to answer the last part of that question, there is a free tier. I believe I can't remember. Is it $5 a month, $10 a month, something like that?
I want to say $5, but let me see the pricing exactly.
Okay, my understanding is that if you're training a smaller model, then that should be covered under the free tier. If you're training and retraining, that might cost a few dollars. But through the VM app, you can actually, I think it's under like user settings, you can see where you are in terms of like within the free tier usage or if you've gone above. And yeah, reach out if you have any questions around that. But the pricing is on, I think, viam.com. There's a pricing page that makes that all very clear.
Yes, I confirmed it's $5.
Okay.
Yeah, the first $5 a month is free.
Yeah. So it should be enough to probably do like a couple tests or like maybe train one small model. Not exactly sure where you'd hit that threshold. And yeah, last, if you all see the screen, and we'll send out the recording later. I'll also probably send out some links, but here is essentially like I wrote a blog post about the project that I just showed you. Here is the event manager and the Flutter app. And then also definitely check out the registry. If you go to docs.vm.com, there's a section there that explains all about the registry, but also, it presents all the modules in the registry in a way where you can search and really see what's out there. Cool.
Brian is saying non-urgent, but the Savcam mobile app, github.com, Viam Lab Savcam app is a 404 error.
I wonder if I didn't make that public. I meant to make it public, so yeah, I will do that right after this call. Thanks, Brian. All right. Well, okay.
Cool. I was just gonna say if there are any final questions because I see some people typing. But outside of that, this was an amazing demo. Thank you so much for presenting, Matt.
No problem. Thanks, everyone, for joining. And yeah, let's wait one more minute in case there are final questions.
Brian said, thanks, team. Professor D said, thanks, Matt. And then Sir Walter is typing, so we're going to see very soon.
Okay. By the way, it's kind of cool that I'm sharing my video through Google Slides and Discord at the same time.
Yeah.
That's a newish feature, I think, on Google Slides. I never used it until now. It's pretty nice.
Feel free to also ask us questions on the Discord channel. We have a dedicated challenge section if you want to add your questions there. We also really want to encourage you to add some like project ideas there and share some process photos and videos or code if you want some feedback on it. We really want to make sure that we're giving all types of attention to you to be able to successfully submit your projects. We had one good comment for you. This was a great session. We'll go through the blog post for more understanding. Okay, we do have a question. Sir Walter is asking, does the SMS or email feature allow you to send a JPEG, or was it only visible in the Sav app?
Yeah, so to be clear, that feature was something I just put directly into the event manager. And I think I just built it with like very basic text SMS features for now. Really, the right thing to do, and you know, whoever wants to do this could do this, would be to add probably like a module that does just SMS messages and maybe uses something like Twilio. And I know like they have all types of support for images. I know also like there's I think there's an ongoing or a project that's being planned at Viam for basic notifications. So then some of those features would probably be built directly into the Viam stack. But for now, I'm not using a built-in Viam feature. I just kind of like have it tacked into the event manager, and you'll see like it could actually improved. And so another idea, however, is you can use an external service. Like I think IFTTT also allows you to do things like send SMS messages. And so acquiring the image to actually send through SMS is actually very easy with Viam. It's really just like the sending that Viam doesn't currently do natively.
Yeah, I shared in the chat the person detection security robot that I made, which uses the Twilio example for sending JPEGs if anyone's interested seeing how you can send yourself an image of the detection.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, Hazal's project is actually really awesome and actually does a really nice job of sending images over SMS. And so, yeah, check that project out if you're interested in that functionality. Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much again, everybody. This was fun, and feel free to reach out anytime on Discord if you have any questions about the project or any ideas for your projects. We're there to help.
Thank you so much, Matt, and thank you, everyone.